Alright, so this video was going to be removing these heads to inspect the pistons and the underside of the heads and all that. If you're tearing down your engine, you might as well take it apart and look at it all, because I found out some stuff. So real quick, I'm going to go over the procedure to remove the head. I'm not actually going to do it because for me it's not worth my time, but I can just point my finger and tell you how it's done. Alright, so and, reference your shop manual. Don't use just me, because I will not pay for your new engine if you screw this up. Go to the shop manual. Get one. They're $35. It's way worth it. If you mess this up, you're buying a whole new head or a new camshaft, and that costs way much more than the shop manual. So, the procedure is, first thing you want to do, depending on the side of the engine, there are dots on here. There's a 1 dot and there's 2 dots. On one side, you line up 1 dot with 1 dot, and then on the other side, you line up 2 dots with 2 dots. And you do that by rotating right here. It says to put the cylinders at top dead center. That's important on some engines because if you don't want to be rotating these independent of each other, this one and that one and that one, because you could smash your valves into your cylinder head and destroy them, and that's not good. But in this engine, the valves are always clear of the cylinder head, so that you don't have any braking malfunction and the engine keeps trying to truck on. So, line those up. There's 2 gears in here that are spring tensioned, and if you were to take this out without doing this next step, they would spin, and that's not good. Then you need a special tool to put them back. So they say to insert a service bolt, which I got from the underside. There's a 10 millimeter bolt inside the oil parts down there, the oil pan that comes off. They fit in here, the thread is correct. Put that in there, and then you remove these bolts and keep them lined up, and I'll show you how I got them lined up. In their correct orientation that they came out, so that you know how to put them back in. You remove it from the ends first, work your way to the center. Quarter turn at a time until you can loosen them by hand. It says to remove this piece, level, keep it level, don't lift one side. Once you have all these caps off and stored away in their proper orientation, ready to go back in, then you lift the cam very carefully, keep it level the way that it is in the machine, pull that out, do the same thing for this side, remove all of these from the outsides to the insides, untorque them, and then lift it out nice and level, same way. Then you're going to want to take out your hydraulic lifters in there. I use a magnet tool, clip the magnet on it, they pull right out, at least they should, and I'm going to show you why I say that in a second. After you're done that, there are bolts down in there. You have to remove those, and there's a hex bolt in here. It's a 8 millimeter, I believe, hex. It's an Allen key socket. That's what it is. So for the orientation removal for those bolts, the head bolts inside, you're going to remove the hex bolt first, and then work in, if you know anything about a star pattern for like doing wheels, it's essentially a star pattern. So it's like this one, then this one, and then opposite, and then that one, and then this one, and then that one, and then this one, and then that one. Like I said, buy your manual. I'm not going to read the manual. It's going to take too long. Read the manual. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. You have to remove it in that order, or you can warp your head. A new head is $350, which is 10 times the cost of a manual. So buy your manual. Yeah, once that's all done, you have all those out, carefully pry it off and place it in your little storage location ready to go back on. this is what it will look like underneath. This is the gasket. When you remove it, you can see all the coolant channels. So why am I not bothering with this engine anymore? Well, I'll show you. You can see on this one, I have all of the hydraulic lifters out, the cams are out, obviously the head bolts are off. But these two hydraulic lifters are not out, and that is because this bearing wore away, this bearing surface wore away so bad and folded over the edge that I cannot remove these. They're stuck. So to get those out of there, I mean, I could go at it with a file very carefully and just to get these out. I could do that, you know, make this nice and round and flat like this one is. But once I'm done with that, this surface is still shot. Here's the camshaft that came out of there. You can see there's all kinds of metal bits on there. Some of them fall off, some of them do not. But like this piece here is stuck. It's not coming off. This is going to be ground away. It's going to have to be remachined, or I have to get a new camshaft. They can't really fill that in and remachine it. It would cost too much. And then this bit, because this is solidly connected to this whole head, they would have to backfill this with weld and then remachine it. Maybe would probably cost me more and take longer in time, which for me time is very expensive. I would probably just want to buy a new one, and they cost, like I said, $350, and that right there kills it. On the underside of the engine, under here, I rotated the crankshaft and wiggled all of the rod bearings, and 5 out of 6 of them are completely shot. So metal came out of there, metal came out of the camshaft. If you look in this head, right here, there's a nice little pile of fine metal. So that probably clogged up all of the oil passageways. And there's some other little pieces of glitter in here, which is not good. If you have glitter pieces, oh, right there's some. Yeah, they're scattered throughout. There's some right there. So what happened was a bearing ate itself and then shot the metal through, and that clogged up all of the oil passages, and then the entire engine started just eating itself. So this isn't even worth me pulling off the other head right now, at least. I got a plan for this engine, even though it's complete garbage. So we can see in here, this stuff is pretty crusty. That's just carbon flakes. I see that a lot in my biodiesel unit right there. That's what builds up in my filters and what will clog up your car if you're pouring used motor oil in there. That's why, you know, if you're using used motor oil for your diesel, you should, you know, at least filter it to get this stuff out. Now, that stuff used to be encapsulated in sludge. But what I did to try and, you know, restore life to this engine was run seafoam through it. And that's probably what killed it, to be honest. It's not seafoam's fault, because seafoam isn't designed to be run on an old, sludgy, gross engine that nobody ever changed the oil on. So what I think happened was the seafoam cleaned out the sludge, and then all these carbon flakes broke free. A large mass of them broke free, and it's like a blood clot in your veins. You know, it just clogs up an artery, which is essentially all the oil flow paths. I mean, this is how big we're talking these little oil flow holes are. And then, you know, that comes in through this one, or these two, flows through the whole cam and then pops out in some of these. Like in this one, there's a little oil ring inside. If you got some of this carbon sludge flakes in there, a chunk of them that hasn't broken loose, fallen apart, it'll definitely clog those up. And then while you're running the engine, it's done. You'll blow out this bearing, or one of the bearings, and then all of your oil flow is then going to go through that bearing, and none of the rest of them are going to get adequate flow. So they're catastrophically going to fail one after the next. You know, more oil flow pours to the damaged bearings. The good bearings have no oil, and that's how your engine fails. And that's what happened to this one. So yeah, that's not not worth it. And I think, oh, well, this one didn't come out, but you can even see on here, this lifter, hydraulic lifter, is pretty scratched up on its own. These are like polished, really smooth surfaces. When you take those out, you want to label them too for their orientation and store them properly. So I wanted to show you guys that. Not that it matters to me anymore, but here's just, you know, a cheap piece of cardboard, and you put them in there in their correct orientation. Just poke holes in the cardboard, stick the bolts through. There's the caps for the camshaft bearings, and those are my head bolts. You're not going to want to reuse your head bolts because they've already been torqued and stretched out to their maximum, you know, design capacity. So those aren't reusable. You shouldn't reuse them. At least you probably could. It's not a good idea. Not saying it won't work, but I'm not saying it will work. Those in the correct orientation. This whole tray is in its correct orientation. This is front of the engine. This is the left side, and you know, right side, front, left, right, rear. Everything in this tray is lined up in that orientation, so that I know. My bolts, been keeping them in plastic baggies. All my stuff, if I know what it is, like this is obvious, I don't label it, but for the ones that I might forget, these are my head cover bolts. So, you know, based on that, the camshaft is going to have to be replaced. That's, I think, $150 or more, probably 200 something. Obviously I need this head. I haven't taken that one off. I might need another one. So that's $700 in heads. So this engine, I can get a low mileage used one from Japan. If I just found out about this the other day, and I'm glad I did. So in Japan, they only run their engines for approximately 35,000 miles, and that's it. And then they scrap the whole car. It's pretty dumb. Over here, we run our vehicles like 200,000 on average before we trade them in or sell them to somebody else who's willing to deal with them after that. So you can get a essentially lightly used engine for $1,000, and that's how much I paid for this one, and that's plus shipping. It's coming from Japan to a warehouse in Virginia. I bought it from the warehouse in Virginia. So it's, you know, within the United States, domestic shipping added onto the price, $1,000. You can't beat it. And how you do that is, this is a 1MZ FE. Instead of searching 1MZ FE engine on eBay or Google, add JDM. And I don't remember what it stands for. I'm sure somebody knows. Please comment it below for the information of everybody here. But add JDM to your search and you will find exactly what I'm talking about. Fantastic deal, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have a 35,000 mile engine in this, you know, like 160,000 mile car that is in really good shape. So it's essentially going to be brand new. So yeah, this is what it takes to rip apart this engine. Definitely, when you buy some engines, like if you get a crate engine, they want the old one and they're going to rebuild it. So it's a core charge. Before you send off your old engine, make sure you get every part off of this engine that they don't require that you're probably going to need for the next engine. Don't send off your old engine with the parts that you need, because you will have to, you know, purchase them. Taking off this belt, mark it up. Timing belt, you know, put some paint marks like these to know where it came from, and on the belt so that you can line everything back up in the proper timing. Otherwise your engine is going to run like crazy and probably shut down and break on you. And that's no good. So yeah, that's important. I'm not going to bother taking all this out. What are my plans for this engine? Here's my plans for this engine. I said I'm paying $1,000 for a 35,000 mile car engine to replace this one. If I took the pistons out of here with the rods, drilled some holes in this deck, you know, mounted the rods to them with the pistons up here, laid a piece of glass over that. $1,500 is what they're going for. They call them custom engine tables. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to see if I can sell that and make my money back. I'll actually make a profit off of throwing this engine out and putting a new one in it. Kind of upset I wasted my time on it, but you know, if it was an easy fix, it was an easy fix. The shipping from Virginia to down here in Florida is 6 days? 6 days or 5 days? I forget. It'll be here in a couple days on the 11th, and it's now the 7th. So that's pretty awesome. Bought it yesterday. So when the new engine comes, drop it in, put all the bolts back down, lift the car, bring it over, set the car on top, reinstall everything. So that is it for this project. Hope you guys found this informative. Hope you have an outstanding day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'm out.